Welcome to Dunedin, Florida for the final telecast of spring training. The Toronto Blue Jays will send Dave Stieb to the mound against the Philadelphia Phillies, who counter with left-hander Shane Raleigh. And of course, April the 8th, we're all excited about that date here on TSN because we'll be bringing you that opener from Texas. Tony Kubek, the Blue Jays have still a 36-man roster. They have to pare it down to 24. What's it look like to you?
I think really you talk to Pat Gillis, we'll have a chance during the course of this ballgame. And Jimmy Williams, this is the toughest time of year for them. You've got to tell some kid that he didn't make the ball club or some veteran that you're going to eat his contract and he's not going to make it. I think it'll be easy to get rid of 8 or 9 of those guys, but it's always those 24th, 25th, and 26th men. And if they go with 24, that means one more man will be on the fence. It looks like some of the young pitchers who pitched well down here will go north with the club. Steve Davis probably, Don Gordon, possibly even Luis Aquino. In today's ballgame, the Phillies, of course, rumors again down here. They're looking at Joe LaFay, who will DH for them, that radical knee surgery. He's a left-handed hitter with a little bit of power. When his knee is well, he can play the outfield. Over at Kissimmee, Florida, 2 hours down the pike a little while ago, 2 days ago, I found out that Dennis Walling, a left-handed hitter there, may be available. Not saying it's going to happen, but these are just the rumors that are going around.
And of course, baseball fans across Canada today will have a chance to look at one of the all-time greats in this game, third baseman Mike Schmidt.
It's an exciting ball club under John Felsky, the former Blue Jays coach. Juan Samuel can run. If Jeff Stone gets in the game, he can run. They've made some changes because they just struck out too much last year.
All right, so stay with us today on TSN, the Phillies and the Blue Jays, coming right up.
In Dunedin, Florida, Grant Field on another beautiful, beautiful day here in Florida and Tampa Bay area. With me, the pitching coach of the Blue Jays, Al Widmar. And Al, first of all, a report on some of the injuries.
Well, Caudle and Lavelle, they've been throwing now the last 2 or 3 days, and both of them have had real good response. Lavelle threw the day and threw the ball well. He changed his delivery a little bit to maybe take some tension off of that elbow, and it seemed like it helped him a lot because he threw and didn't feel anything, and he had good pop on the ball. Caudle has gone out and he's been throwing 150 feet after he gets loosened up, and there's no reaction. And he said this is the best he's felt in any spring training in the last 6 or 8 years.
At this point, Al, does it look like both Tom Filer and Gary Lavelle will be on the disabled list when the season opens?
Well, that's true. Their 21 day won't be up by the time we open up the season, but they definitely have to have a lot of work, and it'd be like Filer may have to go into the minor leagues and pitch 2 or 3 weeks or a month down there before you really say his arm is sound.
So now all of a sudden at the beginning of the season, names like Don Gordon, Steve Davis, and maybe Luis Aquino become very important to the Blue Jays pitching staff.
Well, Cerruti too is throwing the ball real well. We know we've got some quality arms with the young people. It's a matter of being in first place last year, and now we want to win it again. That we'd like to go with experience, but on the other hand, when you have young people, the only way they get experience is take them and use them. We're in a good position because we do have quality arms.
Al, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony, and Al Widmar. And the Toronto Blue Jays are now taking the field here in Dunedin, and we're just about set to get this game underway. And you're looking at the right-hander, Dave Stieb. He'll be making his 5th start with a record of 2-1. An earned run average of 2. He's pitched 18 innings, given up 13 hits, 4 earned runs, a couple of home runs, and he will be the opening day pitcher in Texas, Arlington, Texas, April the 8th, in a game that we will be televising right here on TSN. But he's had a decent spring, that's for sure.
He isn't striking out as many as you think of Dave Stieb would early, but he's worked on the overhand curve, the straight change, same old Dave Stieb slider. I would expect, Fergie, that he won't throw the slider quite as much early in the year. He'll take some strain off his elbow and probably go more with the overhand curveball, which is less strenuous on the elbow. Here's the lineup that he will be facing for Johnny Felsky's Philadelphia Phillies. Gary Reedus will lead it off, play left field. He can run. Milt Thompson over from Atlanta in center field. Another speedster, Juan Samuel, the Dominican dandy, at second base. Mike Schmidt, who will play third base. He's got a little sore back, but he'll play through it today, hitting cleanup. Glenn Wilson drove in over 100 last year in the 5 spot. Von Hayes, remember that 5-for-1 deal with Cleveland a few years back? He'll be at first base, his 4th position in about 4 years. Joe LaFay DHing, coming off radical knee surgery. John Russell, the catcher, and Steve Jeltz, who's become a switch hitter. He's at shortstop.
And Russell, the catcher, has hit 3 home runs, and so has Reedus, and they lead this Philly lineup in spring training as far as hitting the long ball. The defense for the Blue Jays, as usual, out in left field, George Bell, Mosby in center, Barfield in right, Mullenix at third base, Alexis Infante, the shortstop, as the Blue Jays' regular shortstop.
I think they've made a change. As I look out at second base now, it looks like Manny Lee is at second base, and not Damaso Garcia.
Garcia was slated to start this ball game, but there you see Manny Lee. And Willie Upshaw will be over at first base, and doing the catching will be Ernie Witt. But I meant to talk about Tony Fernandez, the shortstop who injured that foot sliding into second base. I was talking to trainer Ken Carson prior to the game, and he says there's no doubt about it, Fernandez will definitely be ready for the opener in Texas. He worked out today for the first time in that ankle, and it wasn't bad at all.
And some of the other players were saying you got to get out of the batter's box because he was hitting left-handed. And Damaso Garcia, for one, was saying, hey, don't be silly. Don't push it now. You still got some time to go. You don't want to twist your ankle horsing around. We'll try and get a report, see if there's anything wrong with Damaso Garcia.
Reedus will lead things off. His .366 on-base percentage was 3rd best among leadoff hitters in the National League this past season.
And, of course, at Cincinnati with manager Pete Rose, you have a young kid named Eric Davis who can run. They compare him in some ways to Darryl Strawberry, the Mets, although he's a right-handed hitter. But they have to give him playing time, so Reedus became expendable.
We've been informed that Garcia is not in the dugout. That's hit down to Infante, the shortstop, to Upshaw, and they get him. And that'll bring up the center fielder, Milt Thompson.
Milt Thompson has got a chance to be a nice ball player, but I can't understand why the Phillies aren't playing Jeff Stone every day with his speed. You know, if Toronto were interested, and I don't know if they are or not, he would make an excellent DH and leadoff hitter. And there have been rumors in that way, too. Jeff Stone can be an awesome base stealer.
Thompson hit .302, 73 games last season. Nice play by Dave Stieb. Flips it over to Upshaw. 2 down.
Thompson will go back to the bench saying, you don't see too many sliders like that. The ball looked like a fastball. When it got on me, it just busted my bat off.
That'll bring up Juan Samuel, the second baseman. Had a career high 19 home runs last season.
He was a leadoff hitter for them a couple of years back, but he was striking out about 150 times a year. His on-base percentage was not good, but he's an exciting young player. Wynn's going to blow it back almost.
Witt makes a nice try. Looks over the dugout, big smile on his face. The home plate umpire is Rich Garcia. He goes out, he wants that ball from Stieb. It did hit the screen. He looks at it, it's all right. Frank Pulley is down at first, excuse me, Tony, over at third, Jimmy McKean.
Garcia makes his home in Miami. Cuban-born, I believe. This Phillies team last year struck out over 1,000 times. That's more than 100 strikeouts on an average per position. And boy, they just didn't move many base runners. They're involved in 35 games that they lost by 1 run. 2 things could have happened. Their bullpen and also not advancing runners because they strike out so much in close games. The thing about that over 1,000 strikeouts is that there were only 11 other players in the National League that struck out 100 times or more.
Off the end of the bat, and it's foul. Well, no less than 16 pitchers worked out of that Philly bullpen last year. Samuel, though, improved defensively. You know, you look back at '84 and see where he made 33 errors. Last year, only 15. There's a drive into left field for a base hit. He's
one of the fastest men of the game. The whole Phillies team defensively started off last year in really very poor shape. And they made the move from Schmidt from third to first. They moved him back to third this year.
Don't forget Samuel, as you look at that replay, became the first Philly to steal 50 bases in back-to-back seasons. So with 2 down here in the first inning, good chance he'll be going. Mike Schmidt, the batter. To Mosby in center field for the 3rd out. So an easy inning for Dave Stieb. A single to Samuel, and he gets Schmidt to end it on a fly ball to Mosby. So after a half inning, no score here in Dunedin between the Blue Jays and the Philadelphia Phillies. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. You're looking at the left-hander Shane Raleigh, who was 13-8 in 31 starts last season. Pitched 5 games in relief. 8 years in the big leagues. He's played for Seattle, the Yankees, and the Phillies. He had a pretty good season last year when you consider he was involved in 17 one-run games. Came out of those 17 games with a record of 3-4 and 10 no decisions. There's the lineup he'll be facing. Look at the spring that Mosby's having. Manny Lee batting in Garcia's spot. Bell, Barfield, Upshaw. Cesar Cedeno will be the DH today, and that's the first time you'll see him on TSN this year. And as you look at that defense, Reedus, Thompson, and Wilson, the outfielders, Schmidt, Jeltz, Samuel, Hayes, John Russell doing the catching.
You can see that defense built for artificial surface. A defense that scrambled last year early and hurt the pitching staff, especially guys like Carlton and of course Raleigh, but they're going more for speed now to chase the ball down.
Mosby in that leadoff spot, a couple of home runs, 8 RBIs.
Raleigh's always had the good fastball, overhand curve slider, and straight change. Claude Osteen, for the last couple of years when they got him, has been saying this guy is going to be a 20-game winner.
Well, you know how hard Gillick tried to get. Base hit into right field for Mosby. You know, you look back the past couple of years, Gillick has tried to get Shane Raleigh. So now Infante will bat in the number 2 spot. I see him coming up as Mosby hits a rope into right field.
Breaking ball down in the strike zone from Shane Raleigh. So they've had Damaso Garcia in the 2 spot at second. When he left, they put Infante in the 2 spot. Manny Lee apparently will hit in the number 9 spot, where Infante was scheduled right up until game time.
Infante led all National League shortstops in total chances, putouts, assists, errors, double plays, and also stole 29 bases last year. He's a good one. It's unfortunate he's playing behind a guy like Tony Fernandez. What's Raleigh's move like to first, Tony?
That wasn't his best one. He's a pretty decent move. He's more deceptive when he comes home with that leg kick. One thing that the National League pitchers have to do more than the Americans is more of a running game. They've got to work on moves, and Claude Osteen works on it many, many times during spring training.
Jeltz, the shortstop, calls for it, 1 down.
Steve Jeltz started the season for the Phillies at shortstop, and first ball game he played, he made 3 errors, and he was supposed to have a good glove. They were worried about his bat, but defensively he hurt them, and his confidence waned, and then they sent him back down.
George Bell leads the club in RBIs and home runs in spring training. Mosby down at first.
You watch George Bell take batting practice this spring as opposed to September of last year. A lot of George Bell's work in the spring this year has been hitting the ball and driving it to right center field. When he started pulling,
there goes Mosby, looking for his 5th stolen base, and he's got it.
Russell, a big right-handed hitter. That's the question mark for him. They think he'll hit some home runs. He's got some power. How will he handle the catching position? Of course, got rid of Ozzie Virgil. Had to hurry this throw and throws it wildly, but I think Mosby had the base stolen anyway. Darren Dalton will be their platoon catcher at this point with Russell. He hits from the left side.
Mosby looks like he's really eating up that challenge of hitting in the leadoff spot. Bell goes after that pitch. It's out of the strike zone.
It's interesting to look up at the end of the year and see what kind of numbers the Blue Jays 3 outfielders throw on the board. Barfield, Bell, and Mosby. We're looking at 80 to 100 home runs. We're looking at 300 RBIs. Look out.
Line into center field. Nice catch by Thompson. Mosby's heading for third. There'll be a play, but he's in there.
Very, very alert play by Lloyd Mosby. If the ball goes over Thompson's head, even though he's tagging up, he can still score. So he alertly gets to third, which puts a lot more pressure on the defense. Not as much in spring training, of course, but in the regular season. Smart base running. Hit very, very hard by George Bell in an 0-2 pitch. Raleigh made it a little too fat. Nice play by Thompson.
And there you see the third base coach in the background, John McLaren, a welcome addition to the ball club this year. He's down on his knees telling the shaker to get down too. Barfield takes the ball.
This is one of those situations where a good pitcher like Raleigh will work on. He sees Barfield, even in spring training, a right-handed hitter with Upshaw left-hander. He's going to be very careful, not anything to the meat part of the plate.
Raleigh allowed just 2 earned runs or less in 20 of his 31 starts. Pops him up.
Change up.
Reedus, the left fielder, coming in. And he's got it for the third out. So after one complete here in Dunedin, there's no score between the Phillies and the Blue Jays. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Well, it's around 80 degrees here in Dunedin. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. And as we drove out to the ballpark this morning, it took you about an hour just to get through Clearwater alone. Cars were jammed up, heading for the beaches.
How about the incident yesterday on the team bus on the way to Lakeland, where as the bus was moving along, some little girl ran out apparently on the side of the highway, and apparently a drunken driver hit this little 3 or 4-year-old girl and then was going to try and get away, and the Blue Jays bus stopped. About a dozen players got up, surrounded the fellow's car and wouldn't let him leave until the police arrived. Jimmy Williams said, "Pull over, Bussy." The little girl apparently not seriously hurt, but she got hit pretty good. And the Blue Jays became somewhat of heroes to the people in the area on the way to Lakeland.
Glenn Wilson will lead things off. Top of the second inning, no score. He'll be followed by Von Hayes and Joe LaFay. Wilson, of course, you'll remember, was acquired from Detroit in that Willie Hernandez deal that helped win Detroit a World Series. Wilson went from a 31 RBI season in '84 to 102 in '85.
He's a good throwing outfielder. He's had a hamstring muscle. He's not had a lot of at-bats so far in spring training.
This program is protected by copyright. Any use without permission is prohibited. Talk about Wilson's throwing arm. He had 18 assists to lead the National League. Of course, Barfield with 22 led the American League, and he pops out.
Wilson doesn't know it. He thought the ball went back out of play. He's still getting in. He didn't realize the ball was run in on his fist, and he thought it fouled back over his head, and here it is playable near foul territory.
Well, of course, he has faced Stieb before. He played for Detroit. That'll bring up the first baseman, Von Hayes.
He, of course, has played center, left, right this year. First base with Mike Schmidt requesting that he go back to third.
6'5", 180 pounds. Does he have a nickname?
I don't know. Stretch?
You got me on that one. I guess I can't use it on the air, right?
I don't know what it is. Tell me.
Remember he was standing on third base and you and I were doing some interviews and you yelled over a name?
I was just kidding.
Oh, okay.
That's not his nickname. I was just trying to get his attention.
So Stieb gets Von Hayes for his first strikeout.
Stieb takes something off a breaking ball. Stieb throws so many kinds of breaking ball. A hard slider, overhand curve. He'll drop down and go sidearm curve on occasion. That was more of a slurve.
Here's a guy who underwent reconstructive surgery on his knee, as you talked about earlier, Tony. 2 major operations last year. Yet he remained and traveled with the club all year when he wasn't in the hospital.
He has really taught himself how to be a player. A couple of years ago, and he was trying to make the big leagues. Of course, he was with the Yankee organization. He's got a great throwing arm.
That's foul down the right side.
But Joe LaFay doing anything. He even got behind the plate, started catching, so he'd give himself and whatever team kept him more versatility. He can hit.
Mosby in center field calls for it. He's got it for the third out. So after 1.5, still no score, the Phillies and the Blue Jays. And now let's go to Tony Kubek as he has a talk with Philadelphia Philly manager John Felski.
John, this year and last year, kind of a youth movement for the Phillies, but you still got two of the all-time greats in Lefty and Mike Schmidt. What is their condition now?
Well, right now, Lefty is as great as he can be. I'll tell you, he's been up on top all spring. He's been throwing great. He's thrown back-to-back shutouts for the time he's been out there. His shoulder is 100%. He's up on top nice and easy, and it's a great plus for the ball club. He's really doing well. And Mike had a little bit of a back problem early, but he's back now 100%, and we need both of those guys.
Back at third?
Yes, he's back at third, right. What happened was at the end of last season, Mike and I sat down and talked about a few things, and one of them was first or third, and he really indicated he'd rather play third. And that's why we were able to go out and make the trades we made. But he's healthy, and he's looking forward to a big season this year. He told me he's going to be the best hitter in the National League this year.
John, they're talking about you guys 5th or 6th in your division, but as I look at the makeup of this ball club, if, there are always question marks, you could sneak and maybe even challenge.
I think so. The big thing for us is going to be, first of all, the health of Lefty, and then who we get to be our 4th and 5th starters. Right now, Charlie Hudson looks like he's going to be our 4th starter, and we still need one more pitcher. But if we can get some quality starting pitching, and our bullpen comes along like I think it will with Carmen and Bedrosian, it's going to be a good year for us.
Talk about quality, you're looking at Shane Raleigh. He's given up only 1 hit in this ball game. Record of 13-8 last year.
Listening to what John Felski was saying, Fergie, it's interesting that the speculation about his future of the Phillies, if the team gets off to a bad start, we're already talking about the John Felski may be gone, because Philadelphia, that big market, they're used to winning. Heck, they went about a dozen years where they're in contention. Last year was one of the first years that they were almost counted out before the season started. So some people say he's on the hot seat. He's a solid baseball man.
Upshaw, the first baseman, having a pretty good spring training. Lines that one into left field. Reedus going back, and he's got it. You were commenting on our last telecast how much Upshaw has been working, hitting that ball to left field.
Yeah, I'm not, I think it's good against certain pitchers. I'd still like Willie Upshaw to turn on the ball and pull it, get the ball in the wind, up in that ballpark, up there, hit some home runs. Willie has gotten a lot of base on balls. He's walked 10 times this spring. Just 13 games before today.
Cesar Cedeno. Yes, sir. They're expecting a lot out of this man this year.
If he makes the team.
That's right. He does not have a guaranteed contract, does he?
I don't think so. That was about this time last year when the Phillies and Toronto made a deal. Remember Len Matuzak coming over? Dave Shippenoff, one who played well, who pitched well for the Phillies in the minor leagues last year, was called up late.
Cedeno's had 20 official plate appearances, a couple of base hits, 1 a home run. There's a base hit into left field.
People forget what kind of player Cedeno was the first 8 or 10 years of his career. He was stealing 60, 70 bases, hitting 300, driving in close to 100 runs. The expectations were so great, and I think perhaps Leo DeRocher, when he first saw him, when he had him as a manager, put a big burden on his shoulder. He said, this kid's got as much or more ability than Willie Mays. And he had to try and live up to that. He had great years in that big barn in Houston. Hard to hit a ball out of there years ago.
Mullenix fouls that one off. Well, Cedeno is the only player in Major League history to hit 20 or more home runs, steal 50 or more bases in the same season 3 years in a row. Matter of fact, he's had 50 stolen bases or more 6 years in a row in the National League. And even at the age of 35, he can still motor pretty good. For a strike.
Raleigh does not appear at this point to be thrown very hard, but he seems to be spotting the ball up and into Mulliks. Then he goes low and away. May have him set up for a breaking ball out of the strike zone. We'll see. Fastball. They were hoping that Steve Carlton could come back at all and pitch after he says it was not a torn rotator cuff. He's come back and pitched about 14 consecutive shutout innings down here. With him, if he wins 15, and Raleigh and Kevin Gross, a fine right-hander, Mulliks thought it was high. You know, with the makeup of the schedule early, they think that, we'll take a look at that last pitch from this low home plate camera. He gets punched out by Rich Garcia. But you can get by with 3 pitches for almost a month. And the rainouts and off days, and that's what Phillies' John Felski plans on doing.
Catcher Ernie Witt for a ball. Witt's had a couple of home runs. As a matter of fact, he was the first Blue Jay to hit a home run here in spring training. And he'll be followed by Manny Lee. 2 down, bottom of the second inning, no score. Cedeno on at first.
Good straight change. Ernie way out in front. Wind's blowing out to more to right field than center field, so anything in the air, it'll keep on going.
Get out, Ernie.
We were here that day when Witt hit a line drive into right center field off of Bert Blyleven.
There's your Wind. Dead center field.
For a base hit. Cedeno's heading for third base. Throws off, and he's in there.
Get an idea of how much Cesar Cedeno wants to make this ball club. Ball bounding over Von Hayes' head. He got a good jump off first base. With 2 outs, he did not bother to stop. At second base, he wants to show that he can still run a little bit, still hit.
That looked like an AstroTurf base hit, didn't it?
This red clay down here, it's very hard. Good base running by Cedeno.
Bring up Manny Lee. Lee, up the middle, a bouncer. Jeltz gets it over to Samuel, and they force Witt out at second to end the second inning. So after 2 complete, no score between the Phillies and the Blue Jays. Nice play by the shortstop, Steve Jeltz. A high hopper. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. We go to the top of the third inning, and leading things off will be the catcher John Russell. He'll be followed by the shortstop Steve Jeltz, and back to the top of the order, the left fielder Gary Reedus. 3 base hits for the Blue Jays, and only 1 off of Steve, and that was by Juan Samuel back in the first inning.
The way Al Widmar and Jimmy Williams sat down and worked out their pitching rotation through this first.
Daily coverage of the '86 World Curling Championship gets underway Monday, March the 31st. The Silver Broom starting at 1:30 Eastern right here on TSN.
What they do with a guy like Dave Stieb, who they want to be their opening day starter, they just back it up from opening day and try and work him backwards every 5 days. It's been a little more difficult this year because it's been a rough spring here in Florida with a lot of rainouts and got a jostler pitching rotation. In fact, I think Steve's been changed to 1 day now so he can be ready for opening day.
Seems to me he's going to pitch next Thursday.
Minnesota?
Yes. And then he will open up in Texas, April the 8th.
John Russell was the starting first baseman for this ball club last year, and then that didn't work out, and that's when Schmidt moved, and the chain reaction started all around the diamond when they got off to a bad start. Now they feel he's at the back in the position where he's best suited, if he can throw some fast base stealers out. Good low ball hitter, low fastball hitter. He is strong.
He hit a home run. It was a pinch hit homer. So he pops that one up. It looks like it's back out of play. Witt will chase it. back on May the 27th against San Diego. He hit it into the upper deck at Veterans Stadium, and right after the game, he was optioned out to Portland.
Hey, how about the Blue Jays getting Ron Musselman back? Minor league contract. Cleveland took a chance on him, went to spring training, and I guess there were some other teams interested. Musselman now will probably report to Syracuse roster, I guess.
I thought he'd make that Cleveland Ball Club.
Well, they're going more. Ronnie's not a young kid, and Pat Corrales wanted to have a look at him, and I think they know they're going to score some runs, but they're trying to develop a pitching staff.
That's the name of the game, isn't it?
Oh, if you ain't got pitching, you ain't got nothing, and that's been said many times before. That's why you like the Blue Jays, because they've got depth and they've got kids with good arms.
And some tough decisions to make in the next week. Here's Garcia in the civvies.
Doesn't look any worse for the wear. We asked how he started, and the reason for down out, he said no reason. Maybe they just felt they wanted to give Manny Lee a few more at-bats. Look at the wind push that ball.
That's a fair ball. And heading into third base, the catcher, John Russell. Well, I don't know whether Barfield misplayed that or the wind carried it. What happened on that?
Now, that ball hit pretty high up on the fence. It's just a matter of it looked like a slider down in a way that he just waved. That'll show you how strong Russell is. Also, how much livelier that ball is the last couple of years. And when he approached the fence, it hit either the pole or that sign up there and bounced away from him. I don't think Jesse could ever believe it would go that far. I couldn't either, the way he swung at it. He is strong.
Don't forget, it's only 315 down that right field line. 335 down the left field line.
Is that reminiscent of Game 7 with the bases loaded and Jim Sundberg popping one on top of the rail out there? Not out here, up there in Toronto at Exhibition Stadium. Wind just kept pushing it out.
And that was just a pop shop, too.
Both teams were hitting it with the same wind, though. Steve Jeltz, who switched it way back in the late 70s at Spartanburg for 30 games, gave up on it. This year he went back home to his home in Kansas, went to the university, and began switching it all by himself.
That'll score Russell. The play by Lee, and they get Jeltz at first base.
Dave Stieb got fooled. The slider that jammed him, he reached for it, wasn't there yet. In the regular season, Dave Stieb will eat that up. Watch Stieb. Not hit that hard. He reaches, it isn't there. Nice play by Lee. Jeltz from the left side gets down with an extra step. Manny knocked it down, still threw him out.
Top of the order, Gary Reedus. He grounded out to the shortstop, Alexis Infante, back in the first inning.
Here's a guy that has already stolen 48 bases in the major leagues. He's already been in the teens of home runs. If Thompson opens the season with a 2 spot, he has stolen 68 in the minor leagues. Sam Well has already stolen 72. Von Hayes is already near 50 in the big leagues, so they'll have a lot of speed in the lineup. Jeltz maybe is somewhat of a base stealer, not a blazer, though.
And look what speed did for the St. Louis Cardinals.
The one big difference is they've still got a lot of guys in their lineup that strike out. Cardinals don't. They have speed, but they put their bat on the ball, they can hit and run. Plus, they got all those switch hitters. You can't just bring somebody in from the bullpen because they just turn themselves around at the plate. Dave Stieb looking disgustingly in on Rich Garcia. Dave, don't start now. It'll back up on you for the regular season.
Long time. It's a full count now, Radis. I see Bobby Doerr has just joined us here in the press box.
He and the Schnoz went into the Hall of Fame. Ernie Lombardi, both long, long overdue. Wasn't that great?
Off the handle, hits it down to Infante. 2 down.
We maybe can get a chance to talk to Bobby once we get situated in the booth. I want to ask Bobby, when he got that phone call from Ed Stack from the Veterans Committee, and he heard, and then the phone was turned over to one of the great hitters of all time, if not the greatest, Ted Williams, and Ted is the one who really told him all about it.
Milt Thompson, the center fielder. He's 0 for 1. 2 down. Phillies lead it 1-0. Base hit into right field. That'll bring up the second baseman, Juan Samuel.
Aside from Bobby Dorr, there are a lot of scouts and dignitaries here. Huey Alexander from the Phillies. Moose Johnson with the Blue Jays, used to be with the Phillies. Bill Giles.
Ed Libertor,
Ed Libertor. Russo, scout from the Orioles. This goes on and on and on. Gordon Lakey's here. Was with Houston. Pat Gillick hired him to come with the Blue Jays.
Talk about a dedicated baseball man. Gord he'll do a great job, I think, for the Jays. Obviously, Mr. Gillick must think so too. Juan Samuel singled off Stieb in the first inning. Pops it up. Bell in left field coming in. Infante going out. And Bell calls for it.
Few fluffy clouds along with that wind. Those fluffy clouds help that fielder with the glasses down. These skies are treacherous here in spring training.
So after 2.5, the Phillies are leading it 1-0. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. A man that we're also very, very proud of, Bobby Dorr, who was elected to baseball's Hall of Fame. And Bobby, congratulations on behalf of all Canadians.
Well, thank you, Fergie. It's really a great thrill, all the nice things that you have happen to you in baseball, and then have something like this happen. It tops it all off.
You know, Tony, I was there for his acceptance speech at the governor's dinner, and I think you thanked everybody in the world and said, you know, what great ball players everybody else happened to be, except Bobby Dorr. It was such a classy acceptance speech. It really was, Bobby.
I was really flattered.
I want to talk to you about when you got that phone call from Mr. Stack, and then he handed the telephone over to somebody. Lloyd Mosby drops a bunt down Rawlington Field. He bounces off in a big hurry. He's got Mosby. I'm glad to see Mosby practicing his bunting. He's done that quite often down here. Billy Smith has helped him. So there's one out. Let me ask you, when Ted Williams got that telephone, what did he say to you? What was your feeling?
He really was thrilled. You could tell. He says, Bobby, I'm so happy for you. And he says, everybody was really for you here, and we were just thrilled for you. And they said they were just going to go into the press conference then, and that was just a short conversation.
You're looking at Alexis Infante. It's the hitter here in the bottom of the third inning. 1-0, Phillies leading it.
One thing, Bobby, that I think people forget, when you were coaching for the Red Sox, and everybody's telling me about your great hitting records and all else, but people forgot that one of your biggest assets, and you put an awful lot of pride in defensive play, and you were a darn good infielder also.
Oh, I always thought that I was a better defensive player than I was offensive. I just loved to play infield, and it seemed like it was just practice all the time because it was so much fun.
The highlight of your career, Bobby?
Capping all this off, getting in the Hall of Fame is actually the greatest thrill. But as a boy, you grow up thinking, you love to be a major league ball player. You get that, and then you get to play in an all-star game, and then get to play in a World Series. I guess one of the biggest thrills, Fergie, was hitting a home run in a 43 all-star game with 2 men on.
Who'd you hit it off?
Off of Mort Cooper, a high curve.
Oh, yeah. Walker's in the ballpark today. You see Rubes here.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. I'll be darned.
George Bell. We're still in the bottom of the third. Infante drew a walk. 1 down. Bell's the batter. And a line drive to Thompson in center field. He makes a fine play.
Because it is so difficult to talk about yourself, we're going to talk to you about some of these kids that are coming up. You had Jesse Barfield as a kid, and I'll never forget when I went over to the minor league complex, he said, watch this kid throw and watch his awesome power. And you've watched him develop now. He turns out to be a darn better average hitter than I thought.
I didn't think he would be this good of a hitter. He was just well, he wasn't, a big boy like this, but he was a little bit conservative, like very cautious type of kid, and I didn't think he would be the aggressive hitter he's turned out to be.
He is as close as you can come to the complete ball player. He's a base stealer now. His throwing arm is awesome.
Yeah. He's just matured into what Tony, I think, is one of the great things that he's doing is going the opposite field, which I never thought maybe he would do too much. He's able to go that opposite field, which helps him.
He was always good
anywhere in the ballpark.
Yeah, that's right. And Tom.
He's a good listener. I mean, he listened to you, and it took a while before it caught on, and then he listens to Cito, too, and I think having that aptitude to be able to do what a coach tells you is an important thing, and he can do it now.
Well, that's right.
He was so enthusiastic. That's out of the park, but it's foul. His enthusiasm, it was contagious, wasn't it?
Well, yes, that's right. And he, like you say, he's put these things into effect to help himself, and that's what makes you feel good, that he has done those things.
So Barfield draws a base on balls, and that'll bring up the first baseman, Willie Upshaw, with Infante down at second and Barfield down at first.
If you're wondering who the third voice in the booth along with Fergie Alvin is, it's Hall of Famer Bobby Doerr, the former great Red Sox player, still a hitting instructor for the Blue Jays, at one time with a big club, now over at the minor league complex. I'm going to ask you about a couple of the kids when we get a chance. One particular, Silvestri Camposano, the Dominican.
Oh, I got to see him in Bradenton a couple of years ago, and he did a couple of things right off the bat that, like a ball was hitting the right center. He come in, and a guy made a big turn on a base hit, and he picked him off of first base, making the turn. And I thought, here's a kid's got some baseball instinct. He's got more baseball instinct than any young ball player I've ever seen.
Wow, that is saying a lot.
Yeah,
and, you know, he's not a big kid, and the ball jumps, doesn't
Well, he fools you just a little bit. You shake hands with him, you see his forearms, and he's just a pretty strong kid.
Another kid that's really impressed everybody, he's really just come around this year, is Glenn Allen Hill.
Glenn Hill, I saw him about, let's see, probably maybe 3 years ago in an instructional ball, and really impressed with his swing. And it seemed like then he kind of, you say, how does he miss so many pitches? You know, he struck out so much. And this spring now, that's what's fun to come back and see these kids, because he is really hitting the ball with some authority now.
He hit one out of there yesterday, didn't he?
Oh, he hit one right now. He hit a ball hard today over there. And it just seemed like it's kind of put together all of a sudden.
Well, 3 walks here in the bottom of the third inning. The bases are loaded, and Cesar Cedeno will get a chance to get his second base hit of the day.
It's only spring training, but Willie Upshaw's been very disciplined. He just took his 11th base on ball, which is kind of nice to see. One more kid. How about the big left-handed hitting first baseman?
Oh, McGriff. He hit one out today.
He did, too?
And he hit it out over the left field fence out there.
He is strong.
Oh, he's now here's a boy that's made some real improvement. I thought he was strictly going to be a low ball hitter, and now coming in this spring and seeing him, he's getting up on that high ball good, and he is really looking very good.
2 down, bases loaded, bottom of the third. The Phillies lead it 1-0. Cedeno, the batter.
See, did you see Steve Davis pitch today?
Yeah.
Steve Davis is scheduled. He's got the good arm, got a chance to make the ball club.
Today he threw over there, and he just wasn't quite throwing as hard as I've seen him throw. I like Steve. He was having just a little trouble.
Line drive right at Samuel to end the inning. Nice play by the second baseman. And the base is loaded. Cedeno hit that ball pretty good. Phillies still lead it, though, 1-0. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Well, Bobby Doerr, just before you go, once again, congratulations for being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I know you'll wear it well, and it's been a pleasure having you on our telecast.
Well, thank you, Fergie, and it's just a real thrill, and I'll be watching you fellows from the Rogue River.
That's right.
I knew he'd get fishing, and he's going to be watching us from his boat.
That's
on
right.
The road, casting for those steelhead.
I really appreciate getting to watch you fellas. You do a real great job. And
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, Bob.
And there's some interested spectators today. There's Pat Gillick in the lower left-hand corner. Peter Woodrington, president of John Labatt Limited. And Mr. Sid Olin, who's the president of Labatt Brewery. They're here watching today's game, and as you can see, enjoying themselves.
The one thing you cannot teach is humility. Have you ever met a more humble, soft-spoken...
You should have seen the ovation he got after he gave his acceptance speech, Tony. Was just such a classy person.
He's one of those guys, Bobby Doerr, also, who, along with the Bobby Maddox, were responsible for the development of a lot of these kids. They went with him when they were younger. Mike Schmidt needs 42 home runs to get to the magic 500 home run circle. Won't get it this year unless he has an awesome year. He'll get it next year.
Well, he had 33 this past year.
You know, the thing about it is he had an awful start. He went 2 or 3 months doing almost nothing.
There's Carrie Olver enjoying herself here. My daughter with her sunglasses and tan.
Was she 19?
Just a few days ago.
Oh, a rifle. She couldn't. Now, why did you want to keep her away from Kelly Gruber? She wanted so badly to meet Kelly Gruber, and you said, now you're too young. Al Woodmar arranged to have her come out and get introduced to Kelly. Gonna make a lot of money someday. You can have a daughter. Can support you the rest of your life on Kelly's money. Now, what's wrong with that?
She's too young for those kind of things. Speaking of Kelly Gruber, there he is in center field. That ball bounced over his head as we've had to change. Mosby's out of the ball game.
And also Cecil Fielder is coming at first base. So the ball was misjudged a little bit by Kelly, moving around to all these different positions. You can see how Stieb jams Glenn Wilson, not hit hard, and Kelly froze off this background. There's a lot of white shirts in the back. Didn't pick it up real well. He's relatively new to the position. Then it bounds over his head. He's trying to be the swing man on this team. Play third. Play any of the outfield positions. Someday Kelly will be the regular third baseman on this ball club. Those are the future plans anyway. Infield's in. Von Hayes, he struck out back in the second. Got one out. Schmidt lined out hard to lead it off. Wilson. Might have been a single bouncing over Gruber's head. 1-0. Phillies. Just sneaks foul by Cecil Fielder in the first base bag. So after the night game last night in Lakeland against the Tigers, Bobby Cox, Jimmy Williams giving some of his players a couple of innings, getting him out. Stieb misses with a sinker away. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Von Hayes. Home opener Monday, April 14th. 20,000 free picture calendars. The Orioles with Earl Weaver back for the entire year versus Jimmy Williams, Toronto Blue Jays. Dave Stieb, the scheduled opener. Breaking ball, and it was pretty good when he took something off. Hit very hard by Von Hayes, driving home Glenn Wilson. 2-0 Philadelphia.
Well, Hayes hits that breaking ball and just lines a rope into right field.
Hit a good spot down. Think about it, you know, the many hitters, I think, would rather see this kind of pitch from Stieb than that hard slider. Dave experimenting with it, showing it. A lot of advanced scouts in the ballpark. They see him throw more slow curves. It puts a thought in their head that they relay to their hitters. Joe LaFay. Slide to center field in the second. 1 out, 2-0 Phillies. Von Hayes, a base stealer. Little chopper, Manny Lee. Should be easy with a bad leg. Joe LaFay, 4-6-3 double play. Joe LaFay still not running well. Von Hayes had a shot to take Infante out. He dances out of the way. But Phillies come up with another run, making it 2-0.
Take another look at this double play, and Manny Lee makes a great turn on it. Gets rid of the ball in a hurry. Notice that.
Look at Infante avoid Von Hayes. Right there is a reason why Joe LaFay may be ideal for somebody's designated hitter in the American League because of that radical knee surgery. There's that Ian Duff sitting there. Ron Shepard. Rick Leach. Luis Leal. Some interest may be shown in him by the Phillies ball club. They're looking for that fourth, maybe spot starter. The best in ladies golf coming up on TSN. The first 2 rounds of the Dinah Shore Ladies Invitational. Thursday, April 3rd at 4:30 and Friday, 3 o'clock. Right here on TSN. Dinah Shore Ladies Invitational.
You know, as you look at Shane Raleigh warming up, he's 23-14 as a starter with Philadelphia ever since they got him from the Yankees in '84. Somebody right in the bag. It's a good idea, isn't it? Pretty good looking hat. 2-0, Phillies leading it.
Rance Mullick's, Ernie Witt, Manny Lee to face Shane Raleigh. Like to get Raleigh into the 6th inning today. Appears to be another full house. I don't know if they're scalping tickets today as they were the other day. Fouled off fastball gets it on the fist of Mullick's. Rance called out on strikes in the 2nd inning.
You know, if you go in and see Howie Starkman, Tony, that's the one thing he'll tell you his biggest problem down here is getting tickets for people.
Well, you wonder how quickly they'll do something by next year with so many Canadians coming down to this area and wanting to see their Blue Jays, and they can't get into the ballpark. So many times you see so many people who can't see ball games because they can't get in. When the team travels, they'll be out here working or watching the 6 or 7 guys left behind a hit. You might see a couple of 100 people here watching BP. Foul right side by Mullick's. 1 ball, 2 strikes from Shane Raleigh. Phillies, of course, went out in the offseason, picked up Tommy Hume from Cincinnati. He may start the season on the disabled list. He's got the bad knee, but the man they really wanted to become their stopper, Bedrock, Stieb Bedrosian, the big right-hander, throws in the 90s. Tried to make him a starter down in Atlanta. They hope that he will be the closer for them. Kent to Culvey. Over from Pittsburgh, will be converted to a middle reliever. What a piece of hitting by Mullins. 2-2. He just reaches out and slaps a hanging slider the opposite way.
It's funny, you know, I was out here taking batting practice the other morning, or at least shagging fly balls out in the outfield. And Mullinex, I was talking to him in the outfield. He was telling me that's what he's been working on, trying to hit that ball more to left field here in spring training. He went in, took batting practice for about 15 minutes, and all he did was hit line drives to left field.
And of course, folks, I think Grandpa's Mullinex got a satellite dish out in California. Rand's father played in the Yankee organization before he hurt himself, and he's his hitting instructor. He'll tell him, when you start pulling the ball too much, pulling off, you got to use the whole field. And Rance gets back in the groove, and the ball's inside, he'll pull. If it's away like that one, he'll go the other way. Ernie Witt. Blue Jays have left 6 on base through 3 innings. Witt single to right field, bounded over Von Hayes' head. 2-0. Phillies lead it, bottom of the 4th. He's going, hit to left field. Mullinex may have a shot at third base. He's going to try it on Gary Reedus. He'll make it easily. Blue Jays have runners on first and third and nobody out. The hit and run is on with Ernie Witt. It'll be interesting if that style of play will be the modus operandi for Jimmy Williams this year. With Witt, not a hit and run man on. Mullinex not with a lot of speed, a left-handed pitcher, and they still start the runner. The element of surprise right there.
Now Garth Orge will come into play for Manny Lee.
Jimmy Williams is serious about this ball game. Mike Schmidt will come tighter at third. Middle infielders playing at double play depth with Von Hayes holding Ernie Witt on. A strike. Started inside and jumped back across the inside corner. I do not think you will see Jimmy Williams be a cautious manager. He's going to run just like Bobby Cox, maybe even more so. Start runners, could be 2. Samuel, Jeltz, Orge hits into a double play. No RBIs. Mullinex scores, making it 2-1 Philadelphia. Garth got jammed. He was trying to go the opposite way, hit behind the runner, hit the hole between Samuel and Von Hayes. He got jammed and hit it right at him. 4-6-3.
Easy double play.
One pitch, 2 outs. The old cliche, the pitcher's best friend, the double play. Kelly Gruber came on last inning for Lloyd Mosby after Lloyd had singled and grounded out.
Gruber has hit a home run and driven in 6 runs in spring training.
Look out. Let's get somebody in the Phillies dugout. It was close. One ball, 1 strike with 2 down. Kelly Gruber facing Shane Raleigh. Change up, misses away. 2-1. Hardest pitch that Shane Raleigh has tried to throw. Getting loose now and way in the dirt. 3-1.
Of course, at Syracuse last year, Gruber hit 21 home runs. So he's got some power.
Gruber's on with 2 outs. Well, I don't think there's any question of Kelly Gruber if he played in the big leagues right now. And he'd be a 20 home run man because he is strong. Is he ready to handle the breaking balls? And sometimes against certain right-handers, you play a guy every day, you can embarrass him and the confidence goes down. There goes Gruber. Big jump. Here comes the throw from Russell. Kelly Gruber took a walking lead, and Shane Raleigh hardly paid any attention to him, so Gruber gets a stolen base. What a decoy by Gruber. Took a walking lead very nonchalantly as though nothing was happening, and he fooled the veteran Shane Raleigh. So both Mosby and Gruber with stolen bases for the Blue Jays in this ball game. John Russell, the catcher, never had a chance. Infante with a pop-up and a walk. Each team with 5 base hits. The Phillies lead it 2-1. Two and one. Kelly Gruber on second base. Walked and stole second. Too far inside and low to Infante. Gruber along with National League umpire Frank Poley, the veteran, down at second. 3 umpire crew today. Ball 4 from Raleigh. Runners on first and second. 2 down. George Bell, the hitter.
Well, Raleigh back in the 3rd inning loaded the bases with 3 walks. He's had a couple here this inning.
When you look at this inning, though, so far, 2 base hits, 2 walks, to just 5 hitters, but the makings of a 3 or 4 run inning, except for the double play. Right on the outer edge to George Bell, shakes his head, saying, but it's a strike. Interesting scouting reports by Bobby Dorr on George Bell's fellow Dominicans, Silvestre Campusano, with that lively bat and that throwing arm, running speed. 2 strikes very quickly on George Bell. Raleigh went outside, now he pops one inside. Bobby Dorr kept you up to date what happened in that game against the Syracuse ball club. Dennis Lamp and Steve Davis pitching over there. McGriff for the home run. Schmidt unassisted as he steps on third. How many times he's done that in his career, with about 6 gold gloves under his belt. Future Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt. After 4 in Grant Field, Dunedin, Florida. Phillies 2, Blue Jays 1. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN.
Just a reminder, coming up April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the Texas Rangers and the Toronto Blue Jays for a 3-game series at Exhibition Stadium. Well, as you know, season ticket sales have been halted in Toronto. They have sold 14,000. And they're almost lining up, I think, every day for tickets. As you look at Rick Leach out in left field, the new left fielder to replace George Bell.
I'll tell you, word of Texas Rangers outfielder, as we look at Garth Orge, who pinch hit, hitting to the double play, goes on to play second base for Manny Lee, but it's like the word is spreading like wildfire, to say the least, about young Pete Incaviglia. Oklahoma State campus will be a starting outfielder for Bobby Valentine's Rangers. They're talking about some of the balls he's hit. Just drove the ball in batting practice through a 1.5-inch plywood wall at their training camp in Pompano Beach. I'm talking about watching him take batting practice, hitting the ball 500 feet, along with Oda B. McDowell. Charlie Huff will not be the opening day pitcher in Texas because he broke his finger on his pitching hand, shaking hands. So the young kid Gooseman will be the starting pitcher against the Blue Jays.
You know Camposano with the Oakland A's? I was talking to Moose Johnson the other day.
Canseco? Joe?
I'm sorry.
Oh, he's awesome.
Canseco, yeah.
He's awesome.
He was telling me that he actually had a standing ovation in batting practice. He had something like 20 out of 25 balls, or maybe even a little more, out of the ballpark, and some of them were over 600 feet.
3 young sluggers, Incaviglia, Canseco, Andres Galarrago. A bullet hit down to Mullenix off the bat of John Russell.
Get hurt.
It almost took Mullenix out to the left field fence. That ball almost caught Rance Mullenix rather than vice versa. Dave Stieb on the mound in spring training glaring at John Russell. Get out of the way, Rance. Almost couldn't. So Russell's on. Steve Jeltz, who's been smoking the ball from the left side, and he did this all on his own this time. Didn't even have a hitting instructor. Decided to go back to switch hitting so that he could get a major league career. Said the biggest secret was I stuck with the basics, and then what did I do? Said I just swung the bat like 1,000 times a day off pitching machines, any arms I could find in the KU gym. He's going. Here comes Witt's throw. No contact. Russell is gone. So Jeltz, a mix-up inside. Jeltz looking down to Jimmy Davenport, former Giants manager, now the third base coach. Didn't even swing the bat. There's something that a hitter, even though he missed a sign, when they say there he goes, especially with Russell on, you've got enough time to react if you've got your head in the game to swing even while he missed the ball to try and protect him. But Ernie Witt throws him out. 1 out. Slider misses too low. The Phillies, I'm not saying it's the best division in baseball, but the Eastern Division of the National League may end up being the most competitive once again with that great staff of the Mets led by Gooden. Foul should go out of play. The Cubs, if their pitching staff is healthy again, they've added Mumphrey to their outfield. Dernier should be back a whole year. If Sean Dunston settles down, he could be one of the all-time greats. Sutcliffe, Eckersley, Trout, Sanderson, backed up by Lee Smith out of the pen. High and away from Steve. 3 balls and a strike with 1 out. Montreal could sneak in. Going to score some runs. Hawk looks to have those legs. Boy, is he hitting the ball. He did it on his own, folks. Started switch hitting. Jeltz gets a base hit to left field.
They're hitting some rockets off Steve today. Well, the last telecast we did with Detroit, the Tigers erupted for 4 runs in that 3-run homer in the first inning off of Dave Steve.
Well,
Didn't look sharp that day.
Mike Laga home run off Steve was wind blowing, and it was really an easy pop-up in most ballparks, but Steve's working on things. He's gotten the slow curve hit off him twice today for base hits. Now it's Gary Reedus. He's grounded out and lined to short.
I see my old golfing partner just looked up. Herb Solway's here.
Oh, he's younger than you are.
He just looks older, that's all.
One of the bright young executives for the Blue Jays. Team attorney, isn't he, Herb Solway?
Sure is.
I've seen Paul Beeston around for a week or so, up there counting his money.
Oh, he's back down.
Was he?
Yeah. He usually spends a lot of time over at the minor league complex.
2-1 Phillies, top of the 5th. 1 ball, no strikes on Gary Reedus. Man, if he was unhappy, Cincinnati, very outspoken. First-year manager Pete Rose last year that he thought he should be playing ahead of some other people, Milner, maybe some others, but they had to get Isaski's bat in the lineup, moved him to left field, off third base. Stieb misses with a sinker, trying to get a ground ball double play. Count goes 2-0 to Reedus. Reedus is the kind of guy, if he gets you 500 or 600 at bats, you're looking at 25 home runs and at least 50 stolen bases. Ted Kozuski worked with him a lot over at Cincinnati. Hanging breaking ball, Mullix. They go to Ord, but they won't get Reedus. Stieb 2-0, pulled the string. Had Reedus out in front. You saw how he runs. It'll be fun now because he may be stealing.
Well, you know, with 48 stolen bases last year, he only had 246 at-bats. Imagine, as you said, if he has over 500 at-bats or even 6.
Now you're going to have patience with his, he'll strike out a lot.
That was a tough double play for Orge to make.
It was the kind of play he shouldn't have even thrown. If you were playing in the American League and known the speed of Reedus, as slowly as that ball was hit to the backhand of Most, you'd have held on to it. You don't want to take a chance throwing it away. Milt Thompson takes a strike from Stieb. Thompson is grounded out, and he is single to right field. Reedus with a big lead. He's leaning, trying to read Stieb's move, which we all know is a good one.
Well, this is the kind of life down here, Tony, that you'd like to continue for about 10 years with the nice weather and everything, and sitting here and doing spring training baseball games. But this is it. This is our final telecast.
You would? I'd like to take the weather north. I want the season to start going, just like players do. You get into your 4th and 5th week, and it starts to drag, but you need it to get your pitchers work. Stieb pitched out on his own. He thought that Reedus was going. I don't think it was called because Ernie didn't really pop out of the box. Dave had an inkling, so he pitched out on his own, ran to count to 2-1. Now it's the base stealer's pitch and a hitter's pitch, too. He's gone. Breaking ball popped up. Mullix will battle the sun and a slight breeze. He's got it, with Gary Reedus on the move. So, a couple singles, a caught stealing, a force out, and a pop out. Middle of the 5th. Here in Florida, Grant Field, 2-1. The Phillies lead over the Blue Jays. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Shane Raleigh will go to the bottom of the 5th and face Jesse Barfield, Cecil Fielder, and Cesar Cedeno. Tickets are on sale. General admission, all 1986 home games. So look for your ticket outlets. See if you can get down, because they're going to be hard to get. Remember last year, the Blue Jays just under 2.5 million in attendance. We've already sold, as we understand, about 14,000 season tickets. Chris James, a new left fielder to go replace Reedus for John Felske's Phillies. 2-0 to Barfield. Look out, Raleigh almost got his head. That's what Bobby Dorr was talking about. Now here's Jesse Barfield, ahead in the count, 2 balls, no strikes. He wasn't over swinging, trying to go downtown. He just rifles the pitch high and away right up the middle.
That shot you saw from the center field camera coming in right here. This ball looks like it's coming right out of the screen, doesn't it?
You can just see that a pitcher has no time to react. After he releases that ball from 60 feet, 1 and a fraction of an inch, he's actually about 55 feet away, and when the hitter reaches out in front of home plate, that takes a couple more feet off it. Sinker ball strike to Cecil Fielder. Came in for Upshaw after Upshaw had lined to left and walked.
Fielder hit .311 in 30 games for the Jays last year.
I don't know why, but I think he's going to go north with the club and make this team. I think there's a deal brewing. Chopper, Jeltz. Tough hop, bounce by. Jesse decides to hold at second with nobody out, and the Blue Jays trailing by a run. Raleigh sunk it, but hit the hard pan in front of the plate, bounded up the middle for a base hit.
A C&I single.
You know, guys like Fielder will get a lot of those for one reason. He hits the ball so hard, and those big hitters kind of get an overspin on the ball because they muscle the ball out. As an infielder, you think you've got it, it picks up spin and almost seems to bounce faster on its second and third hop. Cedeno, single. Line to second. 2 men on, no outs. Phillies lead it 2-1. Each team has 7 base hits. Strike. One thing former Dodger great Claude Osteen, now the pitching coach, wants his left-handers especially to do is pitch inside. You can see how Barfield and Fielder looking over the plate. Most hitters like to extend those arms to get more leverage. And he pitches well, Raleigh. He pitches inside.
Raleigh had a no-hitter this past season going against the Dodgers for 7 2/3. An ex-Blue Jay, Bobby Baylor, broke it up with a single.
Bobby Baylor will make that club this year. See where there's been some surprising releases. I didn't think Phil Niekro, even though he won 16 games, would be released, but he was let go by the Yankees. He was a non-roster player. The big surprise to me was Pat Sheridan, the Kansas City Royals. Fans might remember that bunt single that he got in the league championship game, which really set up some runs. A big hit, and he was let go, and he's a good outfielder who can run. Slider inside and low. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Cedeno.
Could he be the type of guy the Blue Jays might be interested in?
Well, I don't know. Down at first base, Cecil Fielder. Jesse Barfield, who rifled a single up the middle, is down at second. 2 men on, no outs. I don't know if he's got enough experience and has the kind of power they'd like in a DH. Trick pickoff play with Von Hayes sneaking behind. The time to work on trick plays, which is what that was. Shane Raleigh, quite an author. He's already sold a couple of screenplays for local television, I guess, and is in the midst of writing a sci-fi novel. Fair ball. Von Hayes will get just 1. Check swing. As good as a sacrifice. Not intentional, though. Cedeno goes down, but Barfield and Fiedler advance to second and third. A little slider that he tried to backdoor, and when Cedeno tried to hold up, he gets the 2 runners over unintentionally. Mullick's called out on strike. Single to left field. Felsky will have Schmidt come in at third. The rest of the infield will be back. A strike.
Mullenix, as usual, having an excellent spring training. Came into this game hitting .375, and he's 1 for 2.
He has made himself an outstanding hitter, hasn't he? Breaking ball misses. He attributes his success as a hitter to Hal McRae. He was with him at Kansas City. Of course, Hal McRae learned an awful lot from the late Charlie Lau. Mullick employs a lot of Charlie Lau's hitting theories when he bats. Bat laid back in what they call the launching position, touching the left shoulder, weight on the back foot, and then shift to the front foot. Stands off the plate and strides in, tries to hit every pitch off the forehead of the pitcher. Cito Gaston, who's refined the hitting techniques of a lot of these Blue Jays. Foul should be out of play. You know, a guy like Cito, we just showed him in your picture just a moment ago. What a glow he must have had all of last year to see how Jesse Barfield developed. To see Tony Fernandez, with whom he worked so hard all last spring.
Remember that?
290. Extra batting practice every day. They came out of spring training, Johnny Sullivan and Cito Gaston with sore shoulders and arms from throwing so much. And in the long run, it paid off.
Wasn't Tony Fernandez something like 1 for 30 or from the right side of the plate? And everybody was so concerned about it. And I think Tony ended up hitting, what, 284 from the right side and 289 from the left side.
Full count to Mullick with 1 out, 2 men on. Phillies lead it 2-1. Did he go? They're looking for the appeal to National League umpire Frank Cooley. He gives the safe sign, so the bases are loaded once again for the Blue Jays with just 1 out.
Did he go?
3-2. No. You can see that he, well, you can call it what you want. They say, did he break his wrist? Did he cross home plate? The umpires will tell you there's no set rule. It's intent, and the intent of Mullick was not to swing.
They'll tell you at umpire school that's the toughest call in the game.
Yep. Base set, Witt with the bases loaded. Barfield will score. Here comes Wilson's throw. He's got a good arm, 1 hop right to Russell. And Ernie Witt gets an RBI. He's 3 for 3 in the ball game with 3 singles to right field. Now an RBI, tying it up. They're still loaded for Garth Orge. A man who's become as good a clutch hitter, maybe the best on this Blue Jays team, Ernie Witt. Garth Orge came on for Manny Lee in the 4th and grounded into a double play. 2-2 ball game. Fouled out of play. That's why I like to see Garth swing the bat. Not just feel for it. He's a strong little guy. Looking for a minimum of a sacrifice fly now.
Howie Starkman just dropped by to tell us 3,404 fans. Another sellout crowd today.
And a few people standing outside the park looking through the screen. Good fastball from Raleigh. He's airing it out now. 2 strikes on Orange. Now you can cut down his swing and put her in play.
You ought to see those little gaffers out there steal baseballs. Any ball that hits the fence, those kids take off, and they end up out in the parking lot selling those balls. They reach that hand of theirs under the fence. And I've seen a kid walk out with 10 or 12 baseballs.
You know, I saw your daughter Carrie out there before the game. You stationed her out there. She picked up 6 or 7. She's selling them. Get you through umpire school or something.
You know, at
next
that rate of exchange, you got to make all the money you can.
1-2. Breaking ball. Schmidt to Samuel. To Von Hayes. So Garth Orge, in a couple swings of the bat, has made 4 outs since he's coming to the ball game. After 5. Score is tied up 2-2. Base hit Ernie Witt. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Mike Schmidt, I shortchanged him before. He's got 9 Gold Gloves. Check in with TSN, the sports network for National Hockey League action this Monday, March 31st. Broadcast time is 10:30 p.m. Eastern as the Jets meet the Kings right here on TSN. Stieb will face Samuel, Schmidt, and Glenn Wilson in this 2-2 ball game. Saw a couple of interesting guys in the ballpark. Prince Edward's Island today.
Good old Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, they go to 4 Atlantic provinces now with that talk radio show. 2 school teachers, Kirsty Connolly and Larry Resnitsky. Those guys were convinced that PEI should have its own sports talk show 3 years ago. The show's called Sports Rap. It's an interesting show.
That's Cedeno running. Or is it George Bell?
18
That's
radio
George
stations
Bell.
in Atlanta, Canada. Posty and Larry. Nice talk show.
Now, are you going fishing with them out of Prince Edward Island?
Tell you what, I had an invitation last year. I'm going to do it one day. They talked about a goose hunting trip in November. I may do it one day. Juan Samuel, one of the exciting players in the game, against Dave Stieb.
If you want to go goose hunting, the place to go, my good friend, is good old Saskatchewan. Kindersley, Saskatchewan, that area.
Well, I've been to Devil's Lake, North Dakota, which is about 40-50 miles from the Canadian border, and hunted some snows and some blues and some Canadas there a couple of times. I guess a lot of those geese feed all year in those wheat fields in Saskatchewan, and then come south. Pull foul by Samuel. 2 balls, 2 strikes, nobody out. 2-2 ball game, top of the 6th. Samuel is singled and popped to short. Little slider by Stieb. It was a little bit up. Dave was a little bit upset with himself. He didn't get it down in the strike zone, and Samuel stays alive and fouls it off.
We hope to have Pat Gillick with us in the next couple of innings. Seeing that this is our final telecast from spring training, I know that he has some announcements to make today. No big trades or anything like that, but they're going to have to send some players down.
Wind may be blowing it back. Fielder goes over and kicks it off the top of the screen. So Samuel goes down for the first out in the 6th. We bring up Mike Schmidt. That breeze blowing to dead center field. It looked like it would have been in the bleachers in right field, and Cecil Fielder with a nice play.
Sure stayed with it.
Ordinarily, they devote about 1 page in the media guide to players. You look in the Philadelphia Phillies media guide. Hit hard past Alexis Infante. Schmidt with another base hit. He lined the left field and he fly to center. Schmidt has had those back spasms. Last 2 years has been involved in intensive conditioning program during the offseason. Cut his weight down at age 37. Len Wilson and Schmidt on first and step in now. But they have devoted at least a half a dozen pages to the Gold Glove that Schmidt has won, to his home run, his MVP year. Schmidt, of course, won back-to-back MVPs for the Phillies, and that World's Championship team that beat the Kansas City Royals. One of the best athletes in the game, Mike Schmidt down at first.
I mean, his records are numerous, but you see one here. He became only the 20th player in history with over 1,800 extra base hits.
You're talking about Schmidt and the number of extra base hits he has. It's like about 40 to 43% of his hits, total hits, are extra bases. He has better run per. There goes Schmidt, who once in his career stole 28, but not today. So, John Felsky, twice very unlikely stolen base candidates with the hitters involved. Tried John Russell, who was thrown out, and now with Wilson up, who strikes out a lot, he starts Mike Schmidt, but he's thrown out by Ernie Witt.
You know, there's one stat in that a book on Mike Schmidt that I really like. I see where he raised over $85,000 for the United Way in Philadelphia this past year. That's not a bad stat, is it?
No. Glenn Wilson goes down on a soft fly ball to right center field to Kelly Gruber. We'll in the middle of the 6th here with the score tied at 2, and we're going to keep it right here. As Fergie Alver had a chance to talk with Dr. Hinkenstein, Tom Henke. We'll listen in.
Tom Henke, are you happy the way things have gone for you in spring training?
Yes, so far I've been able to work on all my pitches. My fastball's getting up to where it should be, but mainly getting my other pitches in the strike zone. I've only walked one guy, I think, all spring so far, and just getting everything else in the strike zone and being ready for the season.
Looks like you're throwing your sinker ball a little more than usual, are you?
Well, a little bit more this spring, just mainly to get it in the strike zone, get an idea what I want to do with it this year. I think I'm becoming a better pitcher. Last year was a great learning experience for me, and I learned that I can use my other pitches and be successful with them too. So hopefully in the future I'm gonna be a better pitcher than I have in the past.
You still consider your fastball a better pitch than the sinker?
Oh yeah, my fastball's my best pitch. I mean, it's up in the mid-90 range, so it's definitely going to be my out pitch. And during the season, that's what the guys are going to have to hit 90% of the time. That's when I'm going to be throwing at them. So, but if you can mix something in, whether it's your changeup, sinker, or a slider, just keep the guys off balance. That always helps.
Do you think you can get 30 saves in this ball club this year?
I think so. It all depends on how Bill does this year, and I hope he comes back and has a great year that he's capable of having. But if I'm the only guy, I think it's very possible.
The focus will be on Tom Henke this year, who was so brilliant at Syracuse in the last 4 to 6 weeks right here. Kelly Gruber, Shane Roy, that's kind of, the arms there. It stays sound. The thing is to get a guy with that focus on him to be a closer. Over 162 ball games. 2-2 ball game, bottom of the 6th. Kelly Gruber fouls this out of play. Shane Raleigh, the Phillies, going into his 6th inning. And as we had mentioned to you earlier, Fergie had a special guest. We've already had Hall of Famer Bobby Doerr. Now the man they call the architect. One of the brilliant young minds. What a play by Gruber, but it just rolls foul. Pat Gillick in the booth with us. But to remind you, April 18th, 19th, and 20th, the Kansas City Royals versus the Toronto Blue Jays, Exhibition Stadium, championship replay.
Pat Gillick, you sure are a tough man to get a hold of these days. So many decisions you have to make.
Well, Kubek, I don't know what's going on with him. Now he's trying to get on the good side of me, saying the young man.
Young.
He knows I'm almost 50 years old.
I remember you when you were a pitcher for Rod Dato at USC. Then you had another brilliant manager, Earl Weaver, when you used to work on that move to left field. Hit hard by Gruber. Right to Mike Schmidt. There's 9 Gold Gloves, so there's 1 out.
There's a kid that just lined that ball, and I know we were talking, Pat, he's got an excellent chance to make this ball club, Kelly Gruber.
I think really Kelly's kind of turned the corner, Fergie. It takes time for kids to develop, but I think really that Kelly's at the point where he's got his confidence, and I think you can see it in the way he goes about his job on the field now. So I would think he's got a great chance of making the ball club.
Fastball outside and high from Shane Raleigh to Alexis Infante. You know, the two names that we mentioned, and I know part of your baseball background, you've studied the game so hard to have been able to play for a Dado and play under a Weaver. A lot of those things stick with a general manager. Steve Jaltz, nice play to his left. He just gets Alexis Infante, and Steve Jaltz, who came up with a reputation of having a fine glove that struggled last year, comes up with a brilliant play. They're counting heavily on him this year.
What about Tony Fernandez? While we're looking at Jaltz, the shortstop here, make that fine play, Pat. What's his status right now?
Well, right now, Fergie, Tony's just a couple days away from really getting back in action. And at this point, we don't see any problem with him opening the season in Texas. We don't want to push it because when we get a situation such as a sprain, it can be kind of a nagging type of injury. So we want to kind of play it slow. So it looks very, very good right now that he'll be back playing early next week.
Rick Leach grounds out 4-3 Samuel to Von Hayes. 3 up, 3 down inning here at Grant Field, Dunedin, Florida. After 6, it's still tied at 2. And we'll keep it right here and have a little conversation with Pat Gillick, the general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a commercial first of all, and then we'll be right back with Pat. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Well, I think the $64 question baseball fans all across Canada want to know from this man right here, Pat Gillick, will you be making a big trade here in spring training in the next week or so?
I would probably say at this point, Fergie, I don't think so. The way we're situated right now, we've got 3 pitchers really quite questionable. Bill Cottle, Gary Lavelle, and Tom Filer, who have all had their miseries really this spring. And so as I coming into spring training, our excess was really pitching, and we haven't been able to get these guys healthy. So therefore, at this point, I can't see us moving a pitcher and cutting ourselves a little bit short.
You're looking at Von Hayes, who is leading things off here in the top of the 7th inning. Dave Stieb still on the mound, both clubs with 8 base hits. And Hayes, another base hit out in the right field. He's 2 for 3 today.
At this point, Pat, you've got 3 players from the right side with power, all basically designated hitters. And with Fielders playing first today, and Cedeno can play a lot of positions. But you're going to go north, as far as you know right now, with Cliff Johnson, Cecil Fielder, and Cedeno? Or do you know?
I would think at this point, probably not, Tony. Depending on what we do on our roster, we haven't made a decision as if we're going to go with 25 or 24. But no matter the number we do go for, I think from a versatility standpoint and allowing as many moves as possible, it's pretty hard to go with 3 people who are somewhat limited. I mean, Cecil can get by in left field and third base and play first base, but for the most part, he's really a DH, and Cedeno can get by in left and right field and play a little first also, and Cliff plays a little bit of first base once in a while. So it's tough to carry 3 people with almost the same credentials.
Joe LaFave, the hitter. Von Hayes down at first base. Nobody out top of the 7th. The game tied at 2. Tony Kubek along with Pat Gillick and Fergie Oliver here in Dunedin.
Power from the left side out of the DH spot.
Pardon me,
Talking about the availability of some power from the left side out of the DH spot. And of course, Rick Leach, it seems like every year, is kind of on the borderline, and may depend whether you go 25 or 24-man roster. But the man, and I know you can't really speak too much about this because of the tampering, the man at the plate, Joe LaFave's name has been mentioned. He had the knee surgery, and he does have a little pop.
That's exactly right. You know, Joe's been out of action really all of 1985, and it's kind of a wait-and-see situation on Joe to see if he is able to play. And I don't think that question will be answered in spring training. You have to wait to go into the season. So Joe LaFave certainly is someone that's very inviting, but right now I think that his physical status is still in question.
I've heard the name Denny Walling from Houston, and this morning, don't know why, Philadelphia Wright saying Jeff Stone is not being used by the Phillies.
Infante Can't hold on to that ball. LaFay is on, and heading down to third is Von Hayes.
Pat, I talk about these names, not to put you on the spot, because I know how delicate it is, because we're dealing with players' life when you talk player movement. It's awfully difficult. I'm just saying, you know, I'm not trying to confirm, and there are rumors at this point, and it is putting you on the spot. I know in your position you've been kind to come up. But these are things I think fans are asking, and they're reading about in newspapers in Canada, so we throw these names out.
Yeah, I would think really right now with the makeup of our particular club, that we're looking for someone with a little more pop than, let's say, someone like Jeff Stone. And we're looking for somebody with a little more versatility. Again, we want to get into a situation where we've got basically an offensive type player. We want a player that can play a little defense. We think the important part of our club is pitching and defense, and therefore we're looking for people with a little, as I say, a little more versatility.
I don't know. I don't think it was a pleasant surprise, because obviously you feel he's got some ability, but Mark Eichhorn turned in a nice performance last night.
He did a great job, and many of the fans probably aren't aware that Mark used to be a three-quarter overhand pitcher, and last year he made a conversion to underhand, and he's really come up to the point now where he's somewhere between sidearm and underhand, and I think he's found a groove. And Darrell Evans spoke last night, I know, to Billy Smith when he went down to first base when Billy was coaching first, and asked him about Mark. He said because when he was at the plate, he was throwing about 85 different speeds. So that's a very important plus for us, somebody that we didn't think was going to be able to come along, and he certainly has done a fine job this spring.
2 balls and a strike to the catcher, John Russell.
Steve just aired that last pitch out 2-0 with a couple of men on. He's going to push himself probably, perhaps his last inning, I would feel. That's what they're planning on, 7 innings, and he's letting it all out now.
Hankey is warming up down in the Blue Jay bullpen.
He's not turning these over now, Dave Stieb. He's just throwing fastballs high up in the strike zone, strengthening his arm a little bit.
How much interest are you getting, Pat, in some of your borderline pitchers from other teams?
Well, I think everybody right now, Tony and Fergie, for the most part, they're looking for bargains, and they know that everyone's having trouble cutting down, and they're looking for more or less a fire sale type situation. So it's a funny business. Right now, everyone's trying to get down to their limit, and 30 days into the season, everyone's going to reevaluate their club and realize they need more pitching. So sometimes it's better to sit back and be patient and not jump at the first thing, and hopefully you go into the season and your pitcher stays sound and someone else comes up with an injury, you're able to make a deal.
Pat, at this point, you must be surprised and pleasantly, I would think, at the progress of Buck Martinez. There was so much concern during the offseason that you're going to have to, almost like a point of desperation in some people's minds, get a right in it and catcher. But I think right now you must feel pretty good about it.
Well, I think I'm very optimistic, and the one thing about it is that, as the fans know, Buck's been over with us for 5 years, and he's a guy that's got a lot of pride. And the easy thing for Buck to do, since he's got another year on a guaranteed contract, would just be to more or less hang it up or say he can't come back. But he's taken the bull by the horns and really applied himself. And I would think he's back to 95% of where he was beginning the '85 season.
Steve Jeltz, the batter. The count now, a ball and a strike. Von Hayes is down at third base. Joe LaFay down at first. 1 down, top of the 7th, score tied at 2.
I've also got to be impressed the way Don Gordon's throwing the ball. Aquino. Steve Davis, although I guess he had a little rough outing this morning at the minor league complex.
We've had some real pluses this spring, Fergie. Certainly the disappointments is the fact that the 3 pitchers have come up with some arm problems. But on the plus side, Don Gordon's done a great job for us. Mike Eichhorn, as you mentioned. Buck Martinez coming back. Kelly Gruber. The other thing I think, too, in the leadoff spot, Lloyd Mosby's shown a lot of confidence and really kind of taken charge there. And
he sure has,
I don't think he swung the bat any better that I can remember in the last 2 or 3 years than he has recently. So.
And Orange makes a bad throw. Fielder can't hold on to it at first base, so Von Hayes will score. It is 3-2.
And I watched Garth in infield practice and stuff. I think he might have a little tenderness in his arm because that's the second throw he's made that hasn't had a lot on. And that's a common thing in spring training. An infielder, especially moving from third to second, that he may have a little tenderness in the biceps or something. He didn't have a whole lot on that ball.
So Chris James, the left fielder, batting for Gary Reedus.
Pat, when will you make your decision, whether it's 25 or 24? It seems to be a gentleman's agreement among many owners to go with 24, although there seem to be some, like Davey Johnson with the Mets, is saying, hey, look, I'm going to take in 25. The front office, if they want to cut, they can cut down to 24. When will you make up your mind?
Probably April the 7th. We open it on the 8th, and we don't have to cut down until midnight the 7th, so we'll probably make that decision the day before we open the season. And we have two games, as you know, scheduled on the 4th and 5th in Denver, and then 2 off days. So we'll make that decision probably on Monday, which way we're going to go.
How many players will you take to Denver?
We're going to probably take around 28. As it appears right now. We had a meeting this morning and tried to get our extra people lined up. We know just about where we are at this point, and we've got 2 or 3 spots, we think, on the club that are still kind of up for grabs. And so we're going to take another 2 or 3 extra players with us to Denver.
Well, James beats out that slow roller.
We'll definitely probably go because of Tony's Fernandez status, and we'll take an extra pitcher and an extra catcher for certain.
So that'll go for a base hit for Chris James, and on the play, Jeltz moves down to second. 3-2, Phillies leading, still the top of the 7th, and the batter is the center fielder, Milt Thompson.
Another question that may be unanswerable at this point because there's a ways to go. Is there any chance that a big contract might be eaten by the Blue Jays if a deal cannot be made? In other words, somebody making $500,000-$600,000 that you feel may not be as effective as a young player, that you might just say so long.
Well, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, let me say it, that just the fact is that you're dealing in larger amounts of money now than you were 10, 15 years ago. And there were certain situations where when players prior to 1976 were making $30,000, $40,000 that the clubs released them. And I think that if we get in a situation, we want to have the best 24 or 25 players on the field. So certainly we wouldn't think twice of if we thought it was in the best interest of the club of releasing someone.
Okay, Pat, don't go away. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. There's one youngster here in spring training. He's not in this park today. He's at the minor league complex that has really come around this season. You mentioned that to me yesterday. Glenn Allen Hill. Just how good is he?
Well, it depends. You know, sometimes it's Glen Allen Hill, sometimes it's Chocolate Thunder, sometimes it's Thrill Hill, whatever you want to call him. He's got a lot of different names, but I think that somewhere down the line and a couple of years from now, that the fans are going to get a real treat watching Glen Allen play, because he's got all the tools and he's got a chance to be an outstanding player. You know, some of the fans might look at the record book last year and he struck out over 200 times. But don't let that drive you away from the guy. He's got a lot of talent, and as soon as he does cut down on his strikeouts, he's going to be there.
Is there a chance he could be your best prospect in the minor leagues right as of today?
Well, we've got 2 or 3 kids that we're real high on in the outfield. Otis Green, Lou Thornton, Campy, Glen Allen Hill. We've really got 4 or 5 kids, and they're all in the same category. They're quality type prospects, and I would say this though, that if Hill reaches his potential, he could be better than the other 3.
You got an incredible amount of young, good outfielders in the minor leagues, and of course here you look with Barfield, Mosby, and Bell. Boy, I tell you, nothing but depth.
Well, we keep forgetting to mention the man who was with the club all last year with that lively bat and that arm and stuff, Lewis Thornton. I mean, he's still another one that you throw in the pot because he can do a lot of things.
Lou drove a couple balls yesterday very well. We had a game and the wind was blowing in, and he had 2 balls that had probably, if there hadn't been a breeze, been right out of the ballpark. So he's a guy that, you got to look down the line that might be here.
Why don't you tell us about the ball Glen Allen Hill hit out of the park yesterday?
Yeah, he hit a ball about 400 feet yesterday, and he had 3 hits up here when Jimmy used him sparingly with a major league club. While he was here, he got 3 for 3. So he's really made some great strides in the last little while.
You're looking at Dave Rucker, who is now pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. Rucker, left-hander, 28 years old, in his 4th year. And Rick Shue is down at third base. Ron Reynolds is the new catcher, so they've made a few changes. 3-2. We're in the bottom of the 7th inning. The Phillies leading. Jesse Barfield, a full count. Well, Pat, we know that you've got some heavy decisions to make in the next few days, and we also know it's not going to be easy.
It's never easy, but it seems like it all works out, and hopefully it will. And we just hope that we can get our 3 pitchers back on track. Right now, Lavelle's taking acupuncture treatments, and Tom's gone up to Milwaukee to be re-examined by another doctor, and then over to Toronto for our physicians to take another look at him. So hopefully we can get him back on track. Bill Cottle's going to start throwing BP, and hopefully we can get Bill in a game by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. So I'm very optimistic, and we're ready, I think, for the season to get underway.
Pat, if the roster stays at 24, will you go north of 9 pitchers? Whoa, Wynn's going to get that baby. So long, folks.
No, nothing will get that.
Well, the Wynn's going to get it. And it's going about 450 feet aside from that.
Has parked one.
He is a good low fastball hitter. Looked like Rucker sunk the ball down in the way, and he went down and got it. Remember the slider he hit one of our last telecasts, low and away, the right foot to left field on the line?
You're right on that, Tony. Cecil's a low fastball hitter, and that's one thing that we're going to have work on down in the AAA if he does go down, is the fact that lay off the high fastball, because that's a spot he's really got to guard against. But I tell you, he's one of the best low fastball hitters for a kid that I've seen.
Well, that day that the Jays won at 9-8, and he hit that home run to win it, he hit that ball off balance.
Oh, he's a very, very strong kid, and you know, we were fortunate enough to pick him up in the Leon Roberts deal, and he's kind of been in an organization in the last 2 or 3 years, and always remember him as kind of a heavy kid, and he really got with it and got off about 25 or 30 pounds. And when he came up this year, he's really in great shape, about 210, 211.
Are you happy now the way this man right here, Cedeno, starting to swing the bat?
He's starting to swing a little bit better. You know, I think when he came to spring training, you know, he said he'd been working out, but it's working out, you know, on your own or working out in high school or et cetera. It's not the same as actual competition. So he was a little bit behind the rest of the players, but I think the last 3 or 4 days he started to come around.
Pat, I started to ask before Cecil hit that long home run to right center field, if the roster is at 24, will it be 9 pitchers or 10, or has that decision not been made?
No, Tony, it will depend a little bit on the makeup of the staff. And if we have, if we got a lot of veterans in the bullpen, in other words, say that Lavelle and Cottle were sound, then I think you can go with 9. On the other hand, if they're not sound and you have to go with younger people, then I think you have to take a hard look at going with 10. So it'll just depend on the physical status of those 3 people.
Well, Pat Gillick, thanks again for being with us on this telecast.
Well, it's nice being up here, and hopefully we can stay injury-free until the season opens.
You thought this job was easy, didn't you?
Well, it's never easy.
Thank you. I mean, we know yours and ours is, but don't tell anybody.
Base hit to center field for Cesar Cedeno. He is now 2 for 4 in today's ball game. So the Blue Jays have come back, and that 2-run homer by Cecil Fielder and lead it 4-3. We're still in the bottom of the 7th. Rance Mullenix is the batter. Nobody out. Cedeno on at first base.
That was very frank.
I'll say it was.
They will probably meet one more time. I see Moose Johnson, used to be with the Phillies, who knows this Phillies organization, came over to the Blue Jays last year here. He will probably participate.
In fact, Rucker was the Cardinals' #1 left-hand reliever back in '83 after coming over to St. Louis from Detroit. Mullenix 1 for 2, struck out, singled, and walked. He looks down at third base coach John McLaren. There goes Cedeno, but Mullenix fouls off that pitch. Mike Schmidt is still at third base for Philadelphia. Jeltz, the shortstop. Samuel, the second baseman. And Von Hayes still at first.
He used to have a little mustache, and kind of Mike Schmidt is his idol. Now, Mike Schmidt, I believe, has shaved his mustache off, and I think Rick Shue has too. Rick Shue, of course, is not in the ballgame, as Fergie just told you. I had put him in inadvertently. Rick Shue, a good-looking young prospect.
There goes Cedeno. A one-hopper back to Rucker. No play at second, and he'll have to go to Von Hayes at first to get Mullenix.
So once again, Jimmy Williams showing an aggressive style of play down here in spring training, starting a runner, keeping out of a double play. Watch the two middle infielders signal to Rucker. You go to first base. No chance against Cedeno. Prevent him from making a useless throw.
So Ernie Witt, who is 3 for 3, 3 singles, with Cedeno down at second base in scoring position, and a 4-3 Blue Jay lead. I really thought they'd have a big trade. I thought somewhere in the last couple of days we might see a trade.
See, what you asked him, a big trade, and I never got into the next part. We got talking about other things. What about a little trade? Or what about just picking up something that's released? I mean, really, it's, you know, the Len Matuzak deal was made this time last year, as we thought, and sometimes they're not big, and you think they're going to be important as they come along. And, you know, when you get a guy like Pat Sheridan released, let's say they're going to pick him up. He may not be the kind of player, but they're players, and you don't have to be panicky. That's the thing, Fergie, because as he said, you've still got till April 7th, and more teams are getting their roster set. Why make a trade when you might be able to get a guy later on for almost nothing? Say Atlanta lets Chris Chambliss go and nobody picks him up. You got a chance then to have Atlanta pay his salary for at least that year, and you get him for almost nothing, a minimum salary. I mean, it happens. So Gillick knows he's won a division. They're not in a panic situation with this pitching staff. And really, although he didn't see it, there's young Cecil Fielder. Don't know if his first name's Cecil. With his Muhammad Ali imitation with a quick left jab there.
You know what his first name is?
No.
Prince.
Prince? Oh, that's right. Prince.
The pop-up by Witt. Samuel, the second baseman. 2 down. And that'll bring up Garth Orge, who has not had a good day today. Hit into 2 double plays. The Blue Jays with a spring training record, 11 wins, 8 losses.
You know, Pat didn't say it either, but when you really look at the statistics and the way the kids have pitched, he kept saying, and I was reading between the lines, maybe I shouldn't have, that, you know, if we get our veteran pitchers like Caudle and Lavelle ready, well, more often than not, they were ineffective last year. And I think at this point, although the team cannot admit it openly, that the Don Gordons and the Steve Davis and maybe even Aquino deserve to be here off their performance this spring. And if you're going to build a staff for the future, maybe they should be there. But there are a lot of big salaries involved the other way.
Rucker gets Orge at first to end the 7th, but not before the Blue Jays put 2 runs on the board, thanks to a home run to right center field by Cecil Fielder. And it's 4-3 for Toronto. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Tom Henke on the mound as we go to the top of the 8th inning. Henke in spring training, well, he has been pretty impressive as well. A record of 1-0, an earned run average of 1.04. He's been in 7 games, 8 2/3 innings, and given up only 1 earned run. He has struck out 6.
You have
2/3.
You had Dave Stieb for 1 strikeout. He struck out Stieb now just 5 in 25 innings. So he's not striking out many, which may be an indication that he's not using the strikeout pitch. We can see that. Not throwing the hard slider for a strikeout. He's working on the slow curve. So perhaps Dave Stieb will try to conserve his pitches this season and save himself. There's the beast, Paul Beeston.
With his new Nikon camera. That's his Nikon 35 millimeter. It's the one touch, I think. I could be.
You think that guy's got a life?
He's been fooling around that camera all day. I don't know where he got it from. Juan Samuel, the second baseman, leading things off. You heard Henke say in an interview a little earlier that he'll be using his sinker ball a little more, but that was a fastball, and he pops it up to Fielder, the first baseman, and he's got it.
The Labatt's Blue Player of the Game will receive the Nikon One Touch, same one that Vice President Paul Beeston was using. It's all you need for those once-in-a-lifetime shots. The simplest Nikon 35mm ever. Drop in the film, aim and shoot. Leave nothing to chance. Get Nikon One Touch.
Well, his is a Nikon, but it's a little different than that one.
It looked like it. He was focusing and setting exposure meters and everything else.
Schmidt pounds that one down to Mullenix, the third baseman. The throw, they get him. 2 down for Hankey. And that'll bring up Glenn Wilson, the right fielder. Well, Wilson is 1 for 3.
That looked like the Hankey sinker. He's got that split-fingered fastball, or forkball, if you will, that is very hard. It'll get him a ground ball double play. Wind.
That's hit pretty good. In fact, it's out of here for Glenn Wilson. It's a tie ball game.
That's one thing that Glenn Wilson has learned to do since he came over from Detroit. And Mike Schmidt is the one who helped him. He said, look, you're going to be hitting behind me. They're going to pitch around me to get to you, and especially with men in scoring position. He said, they're going to start you off with that slider away. They're going to pitch you away, he said, and stop trying to pull the ball so much. Just hit the ball the opposite way. And Mike Schmidt has helped him a great deal with that. An inside-out swing with that right elbow tucked into the body to force the bat head to trail.
Well, that's the first home run that Hankey has given up in spring training. For Von Hayes, that was fouled down the left side.
Last year about this time that Von Hayes went over and made a special trip to Winter Haven, Florida, to have a little session with one of Bobby Doerr's best friends, Ted Williams. And Ted Williams talked to him, and he's changed the position of his bat. You ever saw Ted Williams? He had those hands close, that bat almost straight up, and Von Hayes has done that.
And that's a foul ball.
Williams didn't really make any mechanical changes to him. He just talked mentally. He said, I haven't seen you hit enough to give you any tips, but it was just about the psychological part of the game. Swinging at your pitch up until 2 strikes. Can you imagine that team that Bobby Doerr played on? I think in one year they had all 8 regulars hit 300, as I recall. The Peskies and the Williams and the Doors and Junior Stevens and Dom DiMaggio, who some say was a better center fielder than his brother Joe.
What would you say?
I didn't see. Joe DiMaggio may have been one of the greatest player of all time. We're close.
Gruber in center field makes the catch on Von Hayes. So Glenn Wilson hits a home run and comes back to tie it up. It's 4-4 as we head to the bottom of the 8th inning. And you know, with Tom Hankey, the way his season started out last year, Tony, he started out in Syracuse. He was 2-1 with 18 saves, allowing only 5 earned runs and 13 hits in over 58 innings pitched. And of course, he came up, and what a lifesaver he was for the Blue Jays. They're really be counting on him heavily this year.
Well, really, when you look at it, Cesar Cedeno went over to the Cardinals. They wouldn't have won it without him. And I don't know. I don't think that the Blue Jays would have won it without Tom Hankey, with Bill Caudle struggling and, of course, Lavelle struggling. A lot of Blue Jays emblems and logos in the stands.
Here's a little hungry friend. Oh, look at that. Little fish there.
It's a GBH.
That's a heron?
Great blue heron, I think.
I've been fishing a few times down here,
trout.
And you ought to see how the herons handle the pelicans. Look at that one go down. Is it going to come back?
That's gross.
But you ought to see it, Tony. You'll have 4 or 5 pelicans hanging around, and then the heron will show up, make a few sounds, chase the pelicans away, and he'll stand and wait to be fed. We caught a catfish one day. It weighed about 2 or 3 pounds. Pelicans won't touch the catfish.
They got those stingers on the front.
We throw it down. The heron walked over, stuck its beak right under the gills, stabbed the catfish, flew away with it, and ate it.
Selling Marlon Perkins.
Poor catfish.
They were talking about some of the players that were let go, like Phil Necro and Pat Sheridan, and Joe Beckwith, the right-hander from Kansas City. Trade that was made. Don Baylor went from the Yankees.
As you look at the bonus day coming up Sunday, April the 20th, the Royals and the Blue Jays, Tony, what did you think of that trade, Baylor and East?
There was somebody wrote, I don't know, it was AP, UP, whatever it was, saying that the Yankees got the best of it, a left-handed hitter up in, or it was an equal trade, they said. But Easter's not a pull hitter. 2 years ago, he hit about 26 balls off that wall and about 10 or 11 over it. He's not a pull hitter. Don Baylor is, so Don Baylor is going to help at Boston Club because he pulls it off. But there is one other consideration. Some people feel or have said that that is just a precursor to another deal, with Tom Seaver going to Boston or maybe the Yankees and Baylor maybe going to the White Sox. So that may not be over with yet. Because you look at Armas and Rice, who DH from the right side sometimes for McNamara and Boston. Why do they need Baylor? I don't know. Perhaps Seaver has wanted to get out. They've named him as the starting pitcher for the White Sox on opening day. Maybe he won't be in the Yankee uniform. He wants to get closer to home in Connecticut.
Hawk Harrelson said he has not closed the door to any deal on Tom Seaver. A ball and 2 strikes to Kelly Gruber, who's playing center field today. Mosby started. Alexis Infante in the on-deck circle, and behind him is Rick Leach. Breaking pitch inside. 2-2. Well, you can sort of see the confidence that Gruber has that Pat Gillick was talking about a little while ago.
So you talk about decisions. Part of the coaching staff and John Felsky are trying to get on chairs as close as they can behind home plate and watch Rucker work. They're looking for middle relief to set up Don Carmen, their left-hander, or Bedrosian. And Rucker is one of those left-handers they're considering. So, boy, Felsky, Claude Osteen, and Jimmy Davenport on chairs outside the dugout, really studying Dave Rucker.
Outside, and Gruber draws a walk.
Charlie Hudson can be their 4th starter behind Steve Carlton, who appears to be back with that screwball and being on top of pitches. And with Kevin Gross and Shane Raleigh, if Hudson is their 4th starter, they got to get middle relief to get to Bedrosian and Carmen. And they've got as many big decisions to make as Pat Gillick and Jimmy Williams do.
Gruber down at first. Infante drops a bunt down. He's going to have a play at second. They get Gruber on the force. Infante laid that bunt directly back at Rucker, and he really had an easy play.
Well, he was trying to go to first base with Gold Glove winner Schmidt down there, who can charge all the way, and he tried to go to first base because Von Hayes had to hold the runner. But when the ball tailed in or sailed in, he couldn't get the bat angle to get it down first base. It was a pretty good pitch. There you're looking at from left to right. That's Jimmy Davenport. What a great fielding third baseman he was with the Giants. Former manager, now third base coach. John Felsky in the center. And Claude Osteen, the former Dodger great. Far right, he's really studying Rucker. They've got to get their pitching staff straightened out. They've got a kid named Mike Maddox, a right-hander, who's got great stuff. Don't know if he'll start the season. He may be a starter of the future for them. Mike Anderson, a right-hander, also was with them last year. Going to make a decision on him. Randy Lurch, a left-hander. You know, it's interesting, with a 24-man roster in the National League, it's tougher if they stay with 24. So you might be looking at a pitcher's being able to pinch run. The first time a pitcher gets hurt with a 24-man roster, you can bet that they'll go back to 25. But a Randy Lurch can swing the bat, and he can pinch hit for you, too. So that means you could have Carlton or Lurch pinch hit, which is more important in the National League. And with a DH, you don't pinch hit in the 5th, 6th inning.
Rick Leach, the batter, came close to making this ball club last year. Mind you, he did play 16 games with the Blue Jays, but then he went down to Syracuse. He was named the team's most valuable player there. Hit 15 home runs, drove in 79. Hit 283. But he'll be 29 years old in another month. Oh, he's hit that one pretty good.
That's what they wanted to do. Hit with this power, and he's doing it better. Off the left-hander, too. He is so popular and so deserving of making this ball club because of his versatility. And if he can show, like he has off and on this year, that little extra pop, pull the ball, get it to right field, they won't have to look for a left-handed hitting DH. And he's to the point now where he it's going to be tough to send him down again if they do. It really is.
It was tough last year, as Bobby Cox said, the toughest decision he had.
Looked like a breaking ball down in the strike zone. He got the barrel head out. It's out of here with or without a win, just like Cecil Fielder's was.
Jesse Barfield. So it is 6-4. Rucker was 3-2 with a save in 39 games and made 3 starts last year.
Another pitcher they've got is Dave Stewart. Right-handers with the Dodgers, then Texas. Talked about going to Japan. He's another was kind of a borderline guy, whether they're going to keep him or not.
I thought he went.
He did?
I don't know.
Day before yesterday, I saw him over in the Phillies camp. Nope, he's still in camp with the Phillies.
He's still here, okay.
He had some feelers from Japan, but he's still here.
A high hopper to Samuel. They get Barfield. Two down, and that'll bring up Cecil Fielder, who hit that home run, the 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th, or in the bottom of the 7th, I should say. The Jays have always liked the way Fielder swings the bat.
Rucker's been around. Cardinals. Detroit, of course, had him. He's trying to hang on to a major league job.
No balls, 2 strikes to Fielder. Don't forget, April the 8th, right here on TSN, 8:30 Eastern Time. The season opener, the Texas Rangers and the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll be there to bring it to you. Also, we'll be televising on the 9th out of Arlington. So the first 2 games of the season.
Bobby Valentine and that young pitching staff. His name Gooseman and Henry and Bobby Witt. Heck, he'll have, aside from Huff, he'll have 3 starters in there that are, you know, I think they've had about 67 or 8 major league innings among the 3 of them.
Well, I'm sure, you know, you look at an organization like the Blue Jays or the Dodgers, you build from within. You build a good foundation, and Texas, you know, they've had a lot of good players get away from them over the years.
Pitchers alone, you could make a list of some pretty good winners, including Jim Clancy,
Tom Henke,
Walt Terrell.
Line drive, base hit into center field.
He is going to be difficult to send down also, if they do.
See, the unfortunate thing is they can send him down. You don't have to worry, he's not out of options.
Well, you know, we talked about this one of other telecasts, and maybe we touched on it today. It used to be it'd go north with your 25 best players, 10 best pitchers and 15. With the contracts now, it's tough. Although, talking to John Felsky before the ball game, he said, all I'll do when we have our final cut-down meeting is here's my list of 24 or 25 players that I think are the best. Here's the guys that I think can win more ball games for me, and that's who I want to take. But then when it gets to cutting time in the front office, they might say, but he's got an $800,000 a year contract, so you got to take him. So that eliminates one player that Felsky wanted to keep for winning or losing, but can't because of the contract. And the same thing will happen with the Blue Jays, or could happen to the Blue Jays. It was interesting. I was talking to Pat Gillick, talked about the acupuncture that Gary LaValle has taken. He scheduled to throw again, I think, tomorrow. Connell's going to throw some BP Monday.
Cesar Cedeno fouls one off.
The doctor down here is Su Ling Ku, the acupuncturist, one of the best in the world, they say, that is sticking the acupuncture needles in the elbow. It's interesting. Gary LaValle said he takes about 11 in the area around the elbow, puts 1 in each knee, 1 in each big toe, and one in each ear. Had some electrodes this morning to stimulate.
Base hit. Fielder will stay at second.
See, that's where DH has hurt you. It's 2 outs, I know, but with 2 outs, if you've got any kind of base runner on there, it's first and third, which puts more pressure on the defense. You don't have that force out at third base and a tough play by the third baseman. With Fielder's lack of speed, he ends up on second base.
Well, by the sounds of that conversation, of the 3, you know, Cliff Johnson, Cecil Fielder, and Cesar Cedeno can do a little more than the other 2.
Mm-hmm. They may eat one of those contracts.
And you know it won't be Cecil Fielder's. But you've got a guy like Johnson and Cedeno on the bench. That's some pretty good depth.
Well, there's no question that the bench will be more potent this year. You have more run production off there with Lou Thornton, Ron Shepard a good part of the year, and Manny Lee. You could have De Jesus there this year, a pitcher, unless they give him back. But you're going to get better run production off that bench this year, which is a plus. Get late in the ball game, or if they, you know, the way you platoon at catch, and Bobby Cox was platooning at first for a while, and you platoon at third. If you want a pitcher comes in the 5th inning, and you got to put a pinch hitter in, you lose a player. But if you still got more on the bench, you can get into the 9th inning and still have a potent bat off the bench. Bench will be better.
A ball and 2 strikes to Mullenix. Turn around, checking with home plate umpire Rich Garcia, asking him where that pitch was.
What does an umpire tell him when you ask him? What does he tell him?
Yeah, he tells him the truth, especially in spring training.
What if he doesn't like the guys? He didn't tell him the truth.
Well, he won't tell him anything.
He doesn't tell him the truth.
No, he won't. They don't teach you that at umpire school.
Rich Garcia, outstanding ball and strike umpire. Umpires came under heavy criticism in the League Championship Series last year and in the World Series.
Two and 2. What do you see as the opening day lineup?
For the Blue Jays?
Yeah.
I think it'll be the same as it was last year. But I think the DH could be Cedeno. Ask me again in a week.
It can change every day. It's a full count to Mullenix.
I think there still is going to be a player acquisition before opening day, not necessarily a trade. And maybe 2. See who's floating around that can help the makeup of this ball club.
Runners are going, and Mullenix hits a fly ball. It's in foul territory. Oh, a nice try by the left fielder, Chris James.
You know, you wouldn't think that there's pressure on players in spring training. When you look at a guy like Dave Rucker, who's trying to salvage a major league career, almost every pitch for him and every outing as you get near the end of spring training is very important. If he has a bad outing, it may mean he's gone. If he continues to pitch well, so for him, you're maybe only talking about between a $60,000 and $100,000 salary for a fringe pitcher who hasn't built up his salary. Well, it's important to this guy.
You take a guy like James, the left fielder. He led all Philly minor league players in average, runs, hits, doubles, and total bases last year. He wants to stay up here. And that's hit foul as well.
Well, they've got a surplus of outfielders. Gary Maddox is still there, along with the acquisitions of Will Thompson and Gary Reedus, Jeff Stone. So as far as Chris James, I think it's very, very remote that he would stay. But like last spring, they've got a bundle of outfielders.
Tough, though, when you hit over 300. Drive in 70-some runs, 54 extra base hits. And you know you're heading back there.
Yep.
Runners on the move, and Mullenix fouls off another one out of play.
Of course, the Phillies still are not certain about their shortstop situation. Steve Jeltz has played well down here. Remember, they had Tom Foley, who was hit by a pitch, went on the disabled list. Should be 6 weeks, maybe longer. So Jeltz is the man, really, who may have lucked out in that shortstop spot. Although he's played very well, and he really deserves it.
We're in the bottom of the 8th inning, 6-4 the score. Fouls off another one, and that one hurt. That was what you call a lip tightener.
Never heard that expression, a lip tightener.
Goes after a pitch out of the strike zone, and he's smiling, a little upset. But it's 6-4 after 8 complete innings of play, and watch where that pitch is. Up high and out of the strike zone. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Well, Dave Stieb started and went the first 7, gave up 3 runs, 11 hits, struck out 1, and did not walk anyone. And then Tom Henke came in to pitch the 8th inning. Gave up a home run to Glenn Wilson. That tied up the ball game. And then it was Rick Leach who had a 2-run homer in the 8th to give the Toronto Blue Jays a 6-4 lead. It is Joe LaFay in the batter's box, and he will face Tom Henke here in the top of the 9th inning. The Jays looking to run their spring training record to 12 wins and 8 losses.
In the event that Henke gets in some trouble, Luis Aquino just soft-tossed a little bit. Jimmy Williams and Al Widmar do not want to push Henke beyond 2 innings.
He's bringing it pretty good, Tony.
He usually does. There is Aquino, who has pitched well down here, throws strikes, gets ahead of hitters. You can bring him in with men on base.
Aquino, unfortunately, will probably start the year out in Syracuse because he's only a plane ride away, and a short one at that. And he has some options left.
There's the forkball. Split-fingered fastball off the end of the bat.
1 down.
And with that fastball he's got, and that big motion, that forkball is so effective. It's a pitch that he really developed or started throwing down at Syracuse. He messed around with a little bit of Texas, but really was just throwing a lot of heat. That's what they wanted from him down there, Doug Rader. It's a pitch that makes him much more effective against left-handed hitters. Screwball action. Reynolds, formerly proper to the New York Mets. His name was rumored that there was some interest the Blue Jays had in the event that Buck Martinez didn't come back. This will be an interesting pitch. Ron Reynolds, who hadn't seen a whole lot of action, if Tom Henke drops down from the side, which is his normal pattern with the 2-strike count, you'll see some bailing.
In the bucket.
Well, he stays on top.
It's incredible to see a guy like Henke get away from the Texas organization when pitching is what they really needed.
Forkball.
Two down. That'll bring up the shortstop, Steve Jeltz.
Well, it's no secret that Doug Rader, the former manager of Texas Rangers, and Henke just didn't get along. Doug Rader said, Rader was trying to motivate him, actually, motivate Henke, saying, didn't say you're gutless, but he did say you should have more courage when you get out on the mound, and trying to really motivate Henke and stuff, and he didn't feel he was tough enough.
Whoa, that was off the bat, down to Mullenix.
That almost got Steve Jeltz.
It is a fair ball, and the game is over.
Steve Jeltz was lucky right there. A fastball that just sailed right in, almost at his head.
So Cecil Fielder walks over and shakes Mullenix's hand.
Fielder had a good day, didn't he?
He sure did, 3 for 3. But watch this. Watch how Jeltz tries to protect himself.
It just kept coming in on him. And hitting from the left side, starting this spring training. He's not used to seeing the ball coming at him in that way. He's new to the switch hitting job. Who's our player of the game? Fielder?
Cecil Fielder.
Honorable mention Leach.
We'll be back to talk about that in just a moment.
All right.
6-4 final score. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN.